Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Bot for short. I'm over Box. So in the light of the Alien Romulus review last week, I thought I would rank the Alien films this week, all 7 of them. I'm not going to include Alien vs Predator in this. Those take the B-movie concept of the Alien and the Predator monsters and keep them firmly B-movie. If I was ranking those, Aliens vs Predator Requiem would certainly be in last place. I actually think Aliens vs Predator is pretty good. I think the Aliens and Predators look really good in that. It's good B-movie fun. But I'm not going to include it in this particular universe. So we're going to rank 7 films and kind of discuss them in detail. It's also a way for me to kind of re-review my Alien Romulus review. I've kind of had a few more thoughts about it. And I should say that if you've not seen Alien Romulus, then you probably don't want to watch this because there will be spoilers. Okay, so in 7th place, just look at my notes, I'm going to start with Alien Covenant. It's quite difficult, tricky to decide what was last place between this and a couple of others. But I think the problem with this is I actually quite like the bits where it kind of opens out the Prometheus world, where it goes to the planet and Michael Fassbender's there. The android David, and he meets his other android, and the bit where they blow each other's flute is quite funny. I think the problem with this film is I don't really like the heroine. I'm not really massive on Catherine Waterston, the actress. I wasn't that keen on Noomi Rapace either. I think with the Alien films, there's the feeling that they have to have the female lead. Because of the Ripley character, and Ripley's a great female lead, and is also one of the best female performances certainly in Aliens ever given by an actress for me. So it's that thing, well, why not change it, you know? They have a problem with this film, then the android's the most interesting character, and it's the same with Prometheus. That creates, a problem in caring about the human characters, but I think once it ends up on the ship, it just falls into the typical Alien thing. I like the backburster. And of course the alien has to be blown into space. People hate this movie. I don't hate it. If you've got aliens, anything to do with Alien is always of interest to me. I'd probably maybe give it a 5 out of 10. I'm not sure. It's not like a 3 or a 4 to me. But I think Ridley Scott, when he went back to this world, I'm not saying he shat on his legacy, but he decrypted everything, and he went up against his own film in terms of claustrophobic tension, and then up against Aliens, James Cameron, and even Alien 3, David Fincher, and we'll come to that one. So that's my reason for this. You're going to end up watching it, but and this film really undid, what did it gross? About $240 million. It didn't gross enough. There wasn't enough after the Prometheus thing. There wasn't enough interest in that. Anyway, so my next choice is Alien Resurrection. So this is a tricky one. This could have been higher. I rewatched this recently. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I saw it at the cinema when it came out. I watched it sometime after that. I think I've seen it again. But I hadn't watched it in a long time. At the time, I remember, thinking it was all right. I still think it's all right. I think Jean-Pierre Jeunet is an interesting visual stylist, as is Darius Khondji, the cinematographer. What was the main thing that struck me about this was how high contrast it is in terms of the cinematography, the filtering. The blacks are very black and shiny, the browns are very brown, and the people's faces are very pale. It's very much of that 90s filter look when you get 7 with the desaturation, and people start putting blue sort of desaturated looks on things, and this was like the kind of what Darius Khondji did with 7, but taking it further. Weird. Special effects are generally good on this, but it has that CGI alien which works okay in the water sequence, less so when it's climbing up the ladder, but the water sequence is the standout set piece. This is the sort of sequence in the film which is kind of memorable and sets it apart from the other Alien films. I quite like the aliens escape from the tank, from the confined space, where Brad Dourif's character's got the freeze thing. There seems to be a lot of humour in this. I think my problem with this, I think the grunts in this kind of talk in cliches. I always say when Aliens came out, that dialogue might be cliched now, but it kind of wasn't at the time. But then he wants the grunt thing of Alien, and then the kind of ship thing of... the grunt thing of Aliens and the kind of ship thing of Alien. Winona Ryder's character doesn't quite work, really. I think I read some comment or review, and someone said she's too big a star for that kind of role. I think they're right, and she's quite slight in build, Winona Ryder, and I don't know, it just doesn't quite work for me. I like what Sigourney Weaver does with her clone character, but you know, Ripley got killed off, and for me that was quite a nice arc. This Ripley is interesting, but she's less empathetic and stuff, and emotional because she's a clone, and that kind of removes something. It's quite short, this film. It's pretty well paced. It doesn't mess around. I'm not big on the musical score. You know, you can see at the time why it only grossed $160 million, and you know, the franchise disappeared for a long time. But I don't think it's terrible. Like, it is, you know, it's got some wacky humour. Again, it kills a Michael Wincott character off. It's that cliche, oh, we've got to kill the captain off, but maybe he could have been more interesting. We could have kept him. Didn't realise when I went back to watch it as well that Gary Dourdan's in it, who was in CSI's Walk. Anyway, let's move on. So my number 5 choice is Prometheus. So obviously I was kind of a mixture of excitement and trepidation of this at the time, because it was a kind of an alien film. Ridley Scott going back to the alien world, but the origins of Alien and telling us too much. One of the great joys of the Alien films is the mystique, and this is the film that does away with the mystique. It's like when you go back and watch Alien, it's like, oh, there's the engineer kind of frozen. Oh, the goo. Yes. So the plus points of this is quite interesting musical scoring, a really cool opening sequence, really beautifully shot, great effects. Ridley Scott bringing all these world building qualities and visual eye to this film. The big problem is I really like Noomi Rapace in the Dragon Tattoo films, but I just didn't engage with the character. I felt her acting was a little flat, and I think the acting's a problem in this film. I think he's hired people like Idris Elba and Charlize Theron, so it's like, well, we know who they are as actors, and we don't need to develop their characters. It doesn't work. He should have hired like really good character actors, like the original Alien. And then you've got to think Michael Fassbender's kind of turns up and gives a really interesting performance. This is kind of in Fassbender's peak period, where he's really knocking it out of the park with his performances. And the android characters, David, is just by far the most interesting. The bits we watch is Lawrence of Arabia. Other weird things like the Guy Pearce cameo. I think one thing that really lets this film, and kills a lot of his credibility, it's really down to one scene. It's Ray Spall's character and the other scientist guy. They're supposed to be scientists, they're supposed to be intelligent people, and they go out to find that goo in the cave, and the kind of acting, the little thing comes out, and they're acting like a couple of like idiot grunts who aren't scientists at all. Why that scene's been done that way, why they've been allowed to do that, but it just undermines the whole thing. It's a little unclear what the goo does. You know, you kind of have to watch the film and watch it again, and then you kind of work it out. You know, they shouldn't have gone here, but I like a lot of the look and some of the things that they do here. But trying to come up with loads of myths around the alien mystique was a mistake, but you can't undo it. That's the thing, it exists now. And as we'll see, that is now getting integrated into things. This film was a hit, it grossed $400 million, but I think people were disappointed with the things I've just talked about, hence Alien Covenant didn't do as well. But still one of the biggest grossing Alien films with inflation, actually second biggest, I think. So that brings me to Alien Romulus. So I mentioned about the goo there. And Alien, what's interesting about Alien Romulus is it chooses to not ignore the Prometheus thing now. It's typical of a lot of reboot things, soft reboots now, where people go, oh, well, that didn't work, so we'll just ignore that. They've tried doing it with rewriting Terminator and rewriting this. They'll probably try it with Star Wars in the future. But what this does, actually has a medical lab sequence in it, where they go, the Ian Holm character, the android replica of the Ash character, explains Prometheus 5, he says, and this is obviously the goo and then the female, the pregnant female, injects it into herself, and then you get the kind of reference with the mutant baby engineer type weird alien child man she gives birth to, because he grows really quickly, is reminiscent of the weird alien baby in Alien Resurrection, which, just backtracking, when I watched Alien Resurrection, I didn't actually mind that as much. A lot of people criticise it, but I thought it was quite clever how they made its eyes sort of cry, make it look like a horrible evil thing, but it had like crying eyes, and the bit where it got kind of sucked out into space, crap CGI, but I quite like the idea. Anyway, back to Alien Romulus. So originally on my review I gave it a 7 out of 10, but I think I would downgrade it to a 6. After thinking about it, I think this film starts well. It has the good planet. It's the mining, you know, how Weyland's exploiting people. I quite like the Cally Spenny character. Spaney is it, and the character of the android, forgetting the name of the actor, he's very good. Where it fails is it doesn't build the characters. It just has, you know, types in there. One of them is really irritating, the sort of Cockney guy whose androids killed his family by making, you know, shutting the mine accident. You just want him to die. The strength of Alien and Aliens is you care about the characters, and in Alien 3 to a certain extent there's some good characters there. This is just cardboard. Clearly they're going for a younger audience. These are people to be picked off, so like a slasher film, and the Final Girl film, it's like that. But I think this really lets it down. But I did like the sort of the initial space bit and arriving at the space station. Then you get your sort of tribute bits, the facehuggers underwater, recalling the Alien Resurrection sequence with the water. The zero gravity bit was kind of like the signature bit of this film. In the climax, the first climax, as I said in the review, just get away from her, you bitch. That line's so good in Aliens. It fits perfectly. It fits perfectly with Ripley character. Everything that's happened up to that point. Sorry. If you know, that could be really cheesy, but it works beautifully in Aliens. Absolutely terrible. Why they did that? Just terrible kind of tribute, fandom, legacy stuff that I just don't like. Then having a dress like Ripley, you know, when she's just in a kind of going to cryosleep gear, and then putting a spacesuit on, and again the alien gets blown out into space, you know. So I said this was the greatest hits. It really has gone all the way to basically glue all these Alien films together. You know, you literally, apart from kind of Alien Covenant, but if you take Alien Covenant and Prometheus as one, you know, all the concepts and ideas within these, it glues them together. I was trying to think of the Alien 3 sort of element in this, and I'm not sure where that would be. I think I said with the look of the planet, actually. The look of the mining planet, to me, that sort of grungy what was like Alien 3. So Fede Alvarez has clearly decided that all the suits have gone, look, you've got to like glue all this together. So I'm going down to 6 out of 10 for Alien Romulus. I'm still going to see it. It's still entertaining. Like I say, like, you know, you'd have to make a really, really, really bad Alien film for me not to enjoy some elements of it. So Alien 3, this is my third choice. So some people are picking Alien Romulus now as the third Alien film. I went to the cinema when Alien 3 came out. Particularly remember a couple of friends who've got clear memories, and actually saw it twice at the cinema because we were itching for Alien film. And our feelings were always mixed about it, but there was always elements and aspects of it we enjoyed. At the time, I remember my mate, he's got a podcast video, Talking Bollocks, H. Howard Smith, so check it out. But I remember kind of pitching, he was like, oh, the cast of Bread and EastEnders, so you got all the Cockney actors and going, fucking hell. So at the time, that was like a bit poor. Now looking back at it, what's quite interesting about that is actors you recognise who went on to be more famous, like Pete Postlethwaite, Danny Webb, who plays Moss, who's really good in it, actually. Holt McElhaney's in it as well as in McClan. I can't pronounce his second name, apologies, but he's the guy who Fincher cast in Mindhunters, and he's been in other things. He's in it as a young guy. And obviously got Ralph Brown as well, Danny from Withnail. Reading up, I didn't realise Fincher was a big Withnail fan, hence the casting of Paul McGann as well. We'll come to that. So that's quite interesting. The problem with it though, because everyone's got their head shaved, it's difficult to know who's who. and it's quite unclear who dies when and where in the climax. But the Charles S. Dutton character, Dylan, is really good. I think he gets lots of good dialogue. His relationship with Ripley is good. And he's there right at the end, and I think, you know, you can add him into like a really good alien character. I do think the Ralph Brown character is pretty good. I think Moss kind of stands out. I think the Charles Dance character is really good, but he gets killed off. Now this is in the theatrical cut. So the theatrical cut is what we saw at the cinema, and the alien comes from, is hatched from the dog Spike. When you see the assembly cut, now people, they call it the director's cut, but it's not. The assembly cut is what Fincher, I think, put together with an editor, or maybe an editor put together. Maybe Fincher had walked by then, I don't know. But the alien comes from a cow in that script. So the debate is, you know, which is the best version of this. A lot of people are like, oh, Alien 3, the assembly cut, is so much better than Alien, the theatrical cut. Now, what I think, I haven't seen both, although I haven't seen the assembly cut for a long time, but I did watch a lot of videos on YouTube just looking at it, is I think there's elements of the assembly cut that are much better. I think the Golic character, I was always completely confused, even when I first saw the film. I was like, where the fuck was Paul McGann? And it, you know, he's barely in it. So what the assembly cut does is has the other bits of Golic, and he actually kind of ends up worshipping the beast in it, because obviously a quasi-religious environment, and he sees it as a god. It gets captured in a big explosion. He actually releases it, yeah. So all those Golic elements need reinserting, but there needs to be some ways to kind of edit it right. The Charles Dance character gets extra scenes. He finds Ripley on the beach, and he has other extra scenes. I think that a lot of those need reinstating, because the Charles Dance character is really good. The other issue there, though, is you need, on the beach scene, if you have the alien come from the dog, which I think is better, then you need to have Spike the dog in at the start, and that kind of is quite hard to navigate when you see both the cuts. But what really needs to happen with this film is David Fincher needs to go, this is my first film, I've disowned this child, but I need to reconnect with it, and he needs to take all the footage from the assembly cut, look at the theatrical cut, which he will be like, what the fuck is this, probably, when we've seen it, and look at what works best, and there's sort of analysis online, and probably use some technology, maybe to CG a few little bits in, just to give us the information we need. You could also use AI with actors' voices if you need to use a kind of a bit of dialogue somewhere. Then you, with the puppets of the alien, they use these kind of puppets on blue screen, which don't always work. Now the CGI is good enough, I think, to CG over that and do a good CGI alien for those sequences. The bit where Ripley falls in the fire at the end, in the smelting the lead, in the theatrical cut, the alien bursts out of the body, and I always liked the look of that. I thought it looked really good, and I like that scene. In the assembly cut, that doesn't happen, but I would keep the original thing, but you might want to make the fire look a bit better and so on. They did do some CGI enhancement, apparently, in the 4K restoration or Blu-ray, not sure about this, back in 2011, but it really needs someone to work alongside David Fincher. It needs Fox to give him some money, because this, a Fincher approved cut, taking both those elements and pulling it together, I think would improve this film. But I actually like both versions. I've always liked this film. It's kind of, maybe the assembly cut's a bit better. Maybe that's a 7.5 out of 10. I think the original cut's a 7 out of 10. What lets it down is studio interference and a lack of clarity on things. But I think this film looks really great. And I think what's interesting about it is it looks completely different from Alien and Aliens. And that's really what, it really did need that. A lot of films that have come, the films that have come since then, to a certain extent, some of them, are trying to have, oh, I need an Aliens moment, an Alien moment. This isn't like that. It's got beautiful cinematography. The sort of the landscape and the prison sets are really good. The striking sequences, the bit where the big explosion, there's all the slow-mo and overlaying. There's some really strong compositions, lighting. And as people pointed out, when the alien and Sigourney Weaver's head, that where the meat shot, as it were, that is, you know, one of the defining images. I'm not going to use the word iconic because it's overused, as David Fincher has said, but it's very memorable. It's one of the defining images, if not the defining image in the Alien films. I think what's weird when you look at it is how amazing Sigourney Weaver's face looks then with a bald head. You know, the shape of her face up against the juxtaposition of the alien and the lighting is amazing. So I've always liked this film. I think there's an 8 out of 10 film in here, but David Fincher has to go and look at it. You've got to be really objective about what works in the theatrical cut, what works in the assembly cut. Take the best bits, put them together, enhance some bits with CGI, master it, and all like that. The other thing is with the musical score, this film's great as well, Elliot Goldenhall. Okay, so that's Alien 3. It's probably going to end up talking about that film more, but it remains one of the most complicated things. Just finally on it though, I do think for me, even though it's a lot weaker than Alien and Aliens, it still finished the trilogy in quite a nice way, the way it closed off the Ripley arc. When it brought back Alien Resurrection, it wasn't the same. I wouldn't compare it to something like Return of the Jedi, but Return of the Jedi is quite a notch down for me from Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, or Terminator 3 from the first two Terminators, and that's how I see the Alien 3 film. The first two are classics, the third one not as good, but I don't think it kind of severely screws the pooch the way other people think it is. Not that people think Jedi really screws the pooch, although they don't, you know, like the Ewoks. I always thought they were nice furry things. Okay, so my number 2 and 1 choices, so this is a no-brainer. It's just what you pick first, what you pick second. So my second choice is Aliens. Didn't see this in cinema when it came out, but got it on home video, one of the great home video rentals at its time. Thought it was brilliant. Still think it's great. I think there was a period I went through where I was like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of daft macho dialogue. But as I said before, that kind of wasn't the cliche at the time. I think the characters are really good. Vasquez, Bill Paxton's character, Hicks, functions well. Newt, you know, really good. Sigourney Weaver, for me, gives one of the great performances ever by an actress. The way she, you know, upsteps the characters, just brilliant. Camera's direction's great. The way the aliens look different, the way it expands the alien kind of world, just really good, just full of good sequences. I was never as fussed with the director's cut as other people were. I think the fact that her daughter's died in the past, so to speak, is good in terms of making the relationship with Newt more profound, but at the same time, most people would have a motherly or fatherly instinct, so if you found, you know, a girl in Newt's situation, I still think she would show a motherly instinct. Backtracking Alien 3, I just forgot to mention, obviously that's one of the things people hate about Alien 3 is it kills off Hicks and Newt. But having thought about it, I would argue that there wouldn't really be a place for them in the Alien 3 universe. It would complicate matters, and for it to keep its nihilism and its sort of sense of fatalism, I actually think that was the right decision. It's actually quite, adds a lot of power to the film, and particularly Autopsy on Newt still being a stunning Fincher scene to me. That was the scene in the cinema when I saw it, where it showed the way he cut it together, the way that they shot the hack, the saw, the surgical saw, and photographed it. It showed to me like, oh, this guy's got something, and that was proven later on. Anyway, back to Aliens, sorry. So I always really liked this film. Last time I watched it, I was like, actually, this is fucking cracking. It's always been a 9 out of 10. It's a great sequel. A lot of people think it's better than Alien. Alien is still one of my all-time favourite films. It still made my top 20, 15, and that's my number 1 choice. I just think it's a straight 10 out of 10. It's got perfect, like all great films, it's got perfect casting, the script's spot on, its world's brilliantly realised, the direction's great. Its pacing's just right to me. It's what I love about this film as well, it's got that 70s-ness, it's got that slightly sort of naturalistic docu feel in the scenes where they're having dinner and the way they complain about the wages, and that kind of got lost and never got that back. Ridley Scott wasn't able to get it back when he did Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but I do, you know, this is when you first saw this film and you didn't know about the chestburst sequence, you know, it's just spot on, and there's just so many details, the way there's all the water dripping the chains, the way, you know, it suggests horror rather than shows it. You know, it's got that great Jerry Goldsmith score, there's great cues. really good climax, really tense. That great bit when Sigourney Weaver's in the suit and she's singing that little Star Lucky Lucky song. Little touches like that. But I think when you watch it again as well, it's when you first watch it, the Ripley character, you think Tom Skerritt, you're shocked when he dies off. Ripley's by far the smartest character, has been pointed out. I think there's a Facebook meme, about that, and she's basically kind of going, look what we're doing this for, and no, all the males aren't listening to her. Lambert's obviously too much sort of of a weaker sort of female character, so it's interesting from that point of view. If you watched it and looked at it logically, you would understand that Ripley has got more of the tools to survive, but Ripley's just such a great character. So great, so that's my Alien rankings, with sort of marks out of 10. I don't think I think Prometheus will give a 6. Resurrection I'll probably give a 5 or something. Anyway, so I will see you again. Remember, share and subscribe, and thanks for checking out. Cheers.